How you doing, and welcome to my channel. Now, if it's your first time here, please don't hesitate to hit that like and subscribe. If you're a returning viewer, thanks for supporting the channel yet again, and please don't hesitate to hit that like if you're already subscribed. Now, today I'm taking a look at the Hot Toys MMS 293 Batman Returns figure, and he is 10 years old now. Next month, released 2015, May 2015, so he's coming up to 10 years old now. Looking at his cape, you can see that it is a traditional Hot Toys cape. It's an old school kind of, triangles out at the sides, which I'm not a big fan of. Doesn't drape very well, but it is wired, so it's not a drape cape. It has held up pretty well. It has got a bit of damage from the gauntlets pressing into it. I have kind of over the years pressed into it and damaged it a little bit, because those gauntlets are pretty sharp. Anybody who has this figure knows that those gauntlets are pretty sharp and pretty flimsy. They break all the time. So we have the Hot Toys cape. Not the best cape in the world. It's really bad, actually. I did at one point replace it with this aftermarket cape here. I can't remember where I got this from. I got it shortly after I got the figure, so you're looking at 8-9 years ago maybe. I got this cape. It had the same issue, flared out at the sides. It wasn't at the, done the triangle, it wasn't great. You can see there's a little bit of flake in there as well, but this is a wired cape, as I said. These two here, two ribs on either end are wired, so 4 of the ribs are wired, and they're not strong wires. You can see it doesn't really hold, but what I've done is I've bought the Jaxon Xu cape, the type A. This is the wired one, the one with the wires in it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 wires running through it. Every rib is wired, and they're thick wires. So let's get the Hot Toys cape off him for starters and do a little size comparison, I suppose. So here we have the Hot Toys cape, the original Hot Toys cape flat out. And just grabbing the Jaxon Xu Type A, and we'll just have a look at the size comparison. And it's not a whole heap bigger. Actually, what I'll do is I'll do it the other way around it and make it a little bit more sense to do it that way. I did film this part after I done some posing with the figure, so those wires will never be straight again. So let me get this lined up as best I can with the Hot Toys one, and there we go. There's not a whole heap in it, as you can see there. Not a massive difference between the Hot Toys and the Jaxon Xu one. Is it just me, or did Hot Toys make bigger capes back in the day? This just seems like such a massive cape compared to the newer Batman figures, but I might be wrong. Let's just compare it quickly to the Jaxon Xu Type A cape that the newer one that he's shipping now, that he's producing now, and the Type A is pretty much the same size as the Hot Toys one. Now, the older Type A one that he done was about an inch longer or bigger, so it was a bigger cape. So it's the same size as the Hot Toys one. So, just putting this Jaxon Xu one up against the Type A versus the Type E, basically, and the Type A is slightly longer, ever so slightly longer, which makes sense because it is a dynamic one that's going to be, posed as if it's blowing in the wind, but not a whole lot of difference, whatsoever. And then here we have him with the cape on him. Now, obviously, I haven't done any futzing or any dynamic posing with it. As I said, there's a wire running down every rib. I just wanted to show it in its bare bones, how it looks when you first put it on him. And, it doesn't look great at all. It looks really, really bad. It looks better than some Hot Toys ones. If you were able to fold them in like that, it would definitely look better than some of the Hot Toys ones. But it is ribbed, so it's very different to the Type A in the sense that it absolutely is not designed to drape. It doesn't flow, so it absolutely, positively has to be manipulated and posed into different kind of blowing in the wind dynamic kind of ways. And it takes a lot of futzing, so you got to kind of wrap it around bits of them and do a lot of futzing. Really, there's a lot of futzing involved in this to get it to look dynamic and look convincing, to make it look like it's blowing in the wind convincingly. So you got to bend all these pieces up, as you can see here, and it's not a throw it on and done. It's not a one and done job. It's quite time consuming to get these wires all into shape, as you can see. It's getting a little bit frustrating, to be honest with you. But you've got to spend a few minutes getting this. That doesn't look great at all. I've got to make that kind of look a little bit better. But as I said, it is very, very time consuming. It's not something for people who aren't interested in futzing whatsoever. I've spent here, I'm obviously fast forwarding here or speeding it up. I think this is about 10-12 minutes of futzing here that I've sped up. So I could continue. I could keep going for a bit longer. It is very different. No matter what way you pose this, it's going to be different to anybody else's figure, and even anybody else who has this cape. It's going to look different because nobody's going to pose their cape in the exact same way, So as you can see there is quite a lot of futzing. This is 10 or 12 minutes worth of footage just fast forwarded, and yeah, it got a little bit frustrating at times, to be honest. But here you go. I could easily have futz with that for another hour and still not been happy. But that is a very crude kind of idea of what you're going to get from spending a few minutes posing this Type A completely wired. Very nice material cape. As you can see there at the back there, it looks rather dynamic, and like I said, I could keep going. I could just keep futzing to get such a unique pose out of it. It's very different. If you want a very different look to your figure, a very dynamic pose to your Batman figure that looks, very different to anybody else's, then this is absolutely the cape for you. This is an option for you. Now, I have used the Batman Returns figure for this example simply because Jaxon Xu uses the Batman Returns figure as his example on the 1/6 kit site, so I figured I'd just use the Batman Returns figure for the example. But what I am going to do here now is, if I just grab him, I have the 2.0 89 Batman, as they call it, or the reissue, whatever way you want to call it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop that cape onto this 89 Batman and see how it looks on him. And here I have it here after about another 10 or 15 minutes of futzing the cape. As I said, this is not a cape for somebody who doesn't have patience. No matter how much I futz with it, I want to futz with it more. I want to pose it a little bit more. I think I can get it better if I just turn this way or twist that way. So it's not a cape for somebody who doesn't like futzing at all. The one thing I want to point out as well is it's just the wires in it can become a bit of an issue. As you can see in the little edges here where it pops up, and it just doesn't look very natural. And as you're moving the wires around, they tend to fold out in these areas here, and you just have to make sure that they're strategically placed or tucked in. You kind of tuck them in under the part of the cowl to make sure that that they don't look out of place. But apart from that, it does look pretty decent for a more dynamic pose for your Batman, whether it be the 89 or the 92. So it is definitely an option, guys. Now the front of that looks a bit terrible. I'm not happy with that. I'd have to do some more foots, and maybe I could just fold it around around the back of him and make it look like it's all blown around the back. There you go. That looks decent enough as well. That's, you know, a bit more futzing, and there's another option for how you'd pose him. So no matter what way you style this, it's never going to be the same as anybody else's, and you're never going to have the same looking figure than anybody else. So it's just impossible. But a nice option for a more dynamic pose for your Batman figure, an unusual pose. It does work on this figure. It works on the 92 Batman Returns figure. So obviously it worked on the DX09 as well. So there you have it for the Jaxon Xu cape. But what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to pop the Type E cape on the Batman Returns figure, and we'll have a look at what that looks like. And here we have it here. Just for anybody who's interested, this is the newer Jaxon Xu Type E cape, and I've popped it onto the Batman Returns figure, as you can see. Just for anybody who has the figure and is considering getting the aftermarket cape, because I know Jaxon Xu only shows the Type E on the 89 Batman and only shows the Type A on the 92 Batman Returns figure. So I'm just on a bit of a flip-flop on them just to show you what they look like on the alternate figures. No real complaints. It looks pretty decent on the 92 Batman Returns figure. Does it look better than the Type A? I'm not sure. But these applications will apply to the newer Batman Returns figure that's coming out later this year or early next year. So these will apply to that figure too, you know, the newer one that's going to be released. And it would probably look better on them. This is an older body. I'm not sure if the body's going to be any bigger. Let's grab a hold of the old 89 and do a height comparison there. Height-wise, actually, they're pretty much the same. Just let me move this stand out of the way. Is the old Batman Returns figure slightly taller? Millimeters. There might be millimeters in it in the height there. So I can't see the new Batman Returns figure being any bigger than these, especially the 89 2.0. It's definitely not going to be any bigger. So these capes will apply to that Batman Returns figure also. So there you go, guys. That is the Type E and the Type A, whichever takes your fancy. But they are two incredibly different looks for your figure. I am going to put up some pictures of the Type A cape, guys. I'm going to futz with them a little bit more and put up some images and try and get some better poses for them and take me time. So thanks for watching the video, guys. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe, and take care. Just another thing also, guys, this will be part of my Jaxon Xu mods playlist that I have on my channel. I'm going to put a card up in the corner there, so hit that if you want more Jaxon Xu. Thanks.